companies that do it because we've done these great big mergers. So we need to break up the monopolies. I hesitate to say we're going to just jump straight to Medicare for all, because all things take transition, all things take time, and I can tell you that under the current administration, I would not want this administration in charge of my health care. And so I think that when you have a program that you want to have the government in charge of, you may need to make sure that you have guardrails in place and that you have good governance. And so that is basically my stance on how we're going to get there. Reverse the tax cuts that were done for Medicaid. Also, restore the people that were processing the claims. Get rid of all the bureaucracy that makes those claims
25 seconds
to pass. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Mark.
Hi everybody, my name is Mark Jolly, long time Nevada. I agree with, I think, everybody here. I think no one up here is going to say that we don't need some sort of a single-payer healthcare system. Right now, you guys represent profit. You're not people. And that's the inversion. That's the problem. The reason that Medicare was slashed was because they saw dollar signs and not the lives that they were hurting. We need to start not just looking at rural communities and what they need, but everybody. I have talked to people, constituents, who have cried to me and told me that the local place that they were going to be going to has lost their specialist because it's no longer profitable to serve the community in Gardnerville. And then the specialist was going to be moved from Carson City and they were going to have to go to Reno. But they're older, their eyesight's failing, they can't do that. That's a serious problem. This is a serious problem with a very serious solution that we can all agree on to move forward with. And yeah, that's healthcare for all. So here's the thing. There's a lot of different ways at this. There's a lot of different definitions that people have. Universal health care is one, but I was actually talking to a doctor the other day, Dr. Alm, who told me that veterans care for all is the system that we should be running with. And I listened to him, and frankly, it was interesting.
Seconds.
Thank you. It was an interesting conclusion, but the root of it was the government gets enough money from us to be able to do the same thing that every other developed country in the world is capable of doing. I see a lot of nodding heads. So I think all of us agree that that's something we want. It's definitely something that I want. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Ooh, that's hot. All right. Definitely, when it comes to healthcare, this country has been in a healthcare crisis for decades. This is not a new occurring situation, but it has been pushed to its extremes by this current administration and the first time that he was in his first administration, which I was the one out on the streets fighting to stop the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. Those were the days where we were fighting for people's health care. And we still are, and we have been for the last decade against this administration again. And we have had a representative over the last 15 years who does everything in his power to cut Medicaid, to cut Medicare, and to continue to come after the Affordable Care Act. Serving in Congress, we do need to move to a universal health care system. Medicare for all is a stance that I've had for years. One of the reasons I went and worked for the Bernie Sanders campaign was because I wanted to make sure that we had access to health care and that it was not going to be bankrupting families across this nation. Now, this is not a flip of a switch. So, how do we do this? First and foremost, we need to lift the cap on the billionaires that stop paying into Medicare 26 seconds into the year. Let's lift that cap and make them start paying their fair share into the system. This is how we are able to then afford a universal health care system right from the start. We start by lowering the age to 60 and raising the age to 30. These are the folks that are left most behind in our healthcare system.
25 seconds, Matthew.
So 100%, Matthew Vongen will be standing for universal healthcare systems, and we can have experts from all across the world, other nations that have been doing this successfully, because this is a big nation. So we can't do it just from one Denmark's plan, but we can take pieces of their plan and put them all together to make it work for this nation.
Thank you. Morgan.
So I agree with everyone. I am for single-payer healthcare. I actually wanted to be a doctor before running for office. I had seen the rural healthcare system in Nevada fail my family, failed me. And the thing is that it's not just about universal healthcare. What we actually have a huge issue with, especially in rural Nevada, and I know you guys know, is we have a really bad physician shortage and nursing shortage in our rural communities and our rural hospitals, and that is something that we can address with incentives, housing incentives, student loan incentives, higher pay, and things like that, because these doctors are coming to our communities and they're getting paid less to work in these communities than they would in urban areas. And that is a big problem, and that is because of the Medicaid disbursement and other issues, and they're coming here and, you know, in Elko I was told that the internet's not good enough, so a lot of the doctors didn't like staying there because they didn't have good enough internet out there. So these are these things that we need to do to improve your guys' communities and incentivize to bring physicians to these communities, because it's not just universal health care. Again, we are having a huge physician shortage in our country, and it's mostly in the rural areas. And we can have the hospitals, we can have the good insurance, but it doesn't matter if we don't have the doctors, so we have to be incentivizing them to come to our communities and to go through medical school and all of that. Thank you.
Samuel, you're up. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
My name is Samuel White. Same boat. I believe in universal health care. I think health care is a human right, and it is despicable that we have been forcing people into bankruptcy for not being able to afford to go to a doctor. I think one of the things not discussed here is that, you know, the cuts to our Medicare and Medicaid systems were done at the They were done basically by the acquiescence of our representatives. They stood aside and they let the big beautiful bill go through for promises of a potential discussion in the future. And looking at what Trump wants to do, he came out with, oh, he wants to increase the military budget to $1.5 trillion. And in there he's like, well, we can pull from Medicare, Medicaid, and we can cut our programs that we all need. And we need someone in our offices representing us who isn't going to stand aside and let the Trump administration or any administration say that what we have now is good enough, or what we have now is more than good enough and we can cut it. We need someone who's willing to stand up and say, no, this needs to improve, this needs to get better, this is a human right, and we're not going to stop fighting for that, we're not going to back down just because of some pressure. Thank you. Thank you. Teresa, last but not least.
Thank you so much. I'm Teresa Benitez Thompson. Thanks for coming to hear from all of us today. I appreciate it so much, and thank you to the organizers for the time and effort, energy to bring this all together. So a couple of different things. One is you're going to need someone who's going to listen to what you need in the community here. I think that in our goal of making sure that healthcare is affordable and accessible for rural communities, we really have to focus on the accessible part, because it doesn't help us to put a lot of money into a one-size-fits-all solution if it doesn't work for your community and if it doesn't work for you. And there are other needs and considerations throughout rural Nevada that we have to take into mind to ensure that we're actually meeting you all where you're at. So I'll ask you this: how many of you travel outside of Winnemucca or Humboldt County for healthcare? Some of you, I see veterans hats on, you're going to the VA in Reno. Big regional care, probably our big regional hospitals are all in Reno. From here, you guys aren't traveling to Salt Lake. Elko might, but you guys, I imagine, are going over to Reno. And probably for specialty care, right? And so my experience when I was working in the hospital in big regional care was I caught you when you came into the big regional hospital for that urgent either medical care, trauma care, long-term care, and then getting you back into your community was always very hard. We need more providers out here, the full spectrum of health care, so that when you come into your community, you're able to have the type of care that you need. But hopefully, and the goal would be, is that you can stay in your own community for the care that you need without having to go to out of the area to make that happen. And that's the type of specific policy that we should think about in terms of meeting your needs.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll take the mic back. Okay, our next question is going to go a little outside the United States. We're going to talk about the war. In recent weeks, President Trump has made incendiary statements to the effect of bombing Iran back to the Stone Ages and ending their civilization. Iran is a country of 92 million people, historically known as Persia. It is one of the world's oldest and most continuous civilization dating back to 4000 BC. These statements are war crimes, and that they terrorize innocent civilians by threatening them with violence. What do you think about how our representatives in Congress have handled this situation? I'm specifically referring to the three folks that represent us here in CD2. That would be Representative Amodei and Senators Cortez Masto and Rosen. What would you do the same, and what would you do differently, and how would you want to address this specific issue if you were in Congress today? Go back to
Immediately after September 11th, I decided to answer the questions: why were we attacked? Where in the world is Afghanistan? And why are we going to war? In pursuit of that, I changed to international relations and ultimately ended up writing a 64-page paper on Iran's foreign policy. I want to be absolutely clear. What this administration and prior administrations, both Republican and Democrat, have done is we have handed our foreign policy to the Israel lobby. I want to say that again. We have handed our foreign policy to the Israel lobby. Netanyahu's own Mossad director said that Netanyahu will save his ass first before the interest of Israel. And he has dragged us and the entire world into another perpetual war. So what I will do is I will champion a Green Marshall Plan, which is the international equivalent of a Green New Deal or an Inflation Reduction Act. Just like we helped with the creation of the Marshall Plan after World War II and the creation of the European Union, we can do this. The result will be creating jobs domestically, internationally, weaning ourselves from perpetual war, and reducing the power of the Israel lobby and preserving our environment.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You got to have that correct. Greg, you're up. Thank you.
So a long time ago, under a Democratic administration, there was a concept for a two-state solution in the Middle East. We're not hearing much about that anymore. I don't see any way of solving the problem in the Middle East other than giving the Palestinians a place to live and to feel safe, and the Israelis a place to live and to feel safe. The whole thing with Iran, it's a sideshow, right? It makes no strategic sense. This country is larger than Iraq and Afghanistan combined. It has 20 million more people than Nazi Germany when we went in. So the war just doesn't make sense. We've made Russia and Iran doubly richer because of the resources they have in the ground. So this is the definition of a forever war. Democrats had a plan. Barack Obama had a plan. He said, don't do stupid stuff. Yeah. Right? Remember that? Don't do stupid stuff, man. So Democrats need to propose solutions. I do believe that if Israeli is not on board with a two-state solution, we should stop sending money that way. and we need to get back to a solution. I don't think there's anything that makes us hostile to Iran perpetually. Yeah, there's been some history, but Iran used to and has been at times a progressive force in the Middle East that actually had a democratic tradition. So we don't have a beef with the Iranian people. Yeah, we may not like the guys in charge, but this war, even if we're successful, only gets us back to where we were in 2016. We're going backwards. Democrats are in a position to present solutions. I support us going back to a two-state solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh.
It's an illegal, immoral, and idiotic war that is destroying our international reputation. And that's dangerous for us because it's driving people away from the dollar, it's alienating us from our allies, it is turning us into an isolated country. And we need to do much more than we are doing right now in response to the question in order to gum up the works and get in their way. We need to be slowing down the work of the House and the Senate until we actually get a vote on authorization for this illegal war. It's been over 30 days, we haven't had a single one. We've been trying to get it in the House, but it hasn't happened. We need to be more aggressive about this. We need to look at changing the War Powers Act. Right now, the president can go for 60 days without authorization. And then if he decides it's for a strategic reason, he can go for another 30 days. Right? That's a whole quarter of a year without congressional authorization, and that's too long. We need to have an affirmative vote of Congress within weeks of military action, not months. That's something that I want to see when it comes to dealing with the war powers. Congress needs to take its power back. This administration has seized far too much power from Congress, and Congress has not done enough in order to do it. Our senators, they put up stuff on social media, and that's great. We need to have that public pressure, but they need to be doing more. We need to be having this in the legislature, slowing things down every day. Yes, we need to have a two-state solution in Israel, but that's not going to happen. It's very clear with this Israeli government what they want. They want domination of that whole region. We need to cut them off. They are a liability to us at this point, and I will not vote to send another dime or another bullet to Israel.
Thank you, Josh. Kathy?
Yeah, this one's personal to me because I have a son who is in the Air Force, I have a granddaughter who is in the Navy, a grandson-in-law in the Navy, and I have a grandson at Fort Benning right now in the Army. I come from a long line of military history. My dad fought in Vietnam, goes back to my grandfather who was a Marine and then Special Forces. My other grandfather was a colonel in the Army. The military is what shaped my patriotism growing up in a military family and my love of country. But I also know that the preamble to the Constitution says that to provide for the common defense, not offense. Article 1, Section 8 says that the war powers belong to Congress. And so, as we've heard, this is a legal war. This is a war without justification. This is a war without a plan. This is a war without a strategy. This is a war without an exit plan. This is an unnecessary war. We had a plan in place with the Iranian people. We might not like the regime, their leadership, but we had a plan in place that talked about what they could do in terms of developing their nuclear. Somebody ripped that up and said he could get a better deal. Mr. Dealmaker apparently cannot get a better deal.
30 seconds.
We need to stop funding Israel. We need to stop having Israel direct our foreign policy. AIPAC lobby, you won't see them anywhere near me. And any of our legislators, and I believe that was part of the question, is, what about our representatives? They haven't been vocal enough, and they've been complicit because they take money from the very people who are funding this. This does not make our country any safer.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark?
We have the strongest military the world has ever seen. That is not something that should be taken lightly. But I see it in the hands of somebody who uses it in a cavalier fashion when he feels like he's getting into political hot water. He was bombing boats off of Venezuela, and then he decapitated their leadership. He's been threatening Greenland, he's been threatening Canada, he's gotten our allies basically reconsidering whether or not they're going to share information with us anymore. And that's even before we did anything in Iran. I do not think that our military, as it is, should ever be in the hands of one capricious person. That's ridiculous. So I agree, War Powers Act needs to be redefined. Frankly, I don't think we should be force projecting anywhere. Kathy's right. Defense. It's the Department of Defense, not of war. So yeah, what did we get from this? Aside from killing a lot of people, aside from making enemies of our allies, I don't know. When was the last time you guys went to the gas pump? Right. So do I think that we should be at war in Iran? Obviously not. But I also don't think that that kind of power belongs in the hands of one person. And I don't care if that person's a Democrat or Republican. The people, us, need to decide what we're going to be doing with that military force. And that's what Congress is for. Now, as far as my representatives go, I have been disappointed time and time again, to the point where I know what I'm going to be getting from centrist Democrats when they go there. They're just going to sit, they're going to write strongly worded letters, they're going to maybe grandstand a bit, but at the end of the day, they're just going to go back to their offices and do nothing. That's not what I'm going to do.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew.
So first and foremost, this is unconstitutional. The administration has violated law, they have violated Constitution, and they have violated the rights of the American people. We should have a say in what is happening across the world in all of our foreign policy, and that is by electing a representative who is willing to speak up and stand up to party leadership, who we are seeing currently and for the last year sit on their thumbs and do absolutely nothing to hold this administration accountable. No guardrails, no nothing. They just throw their hands in the air and go, well, we're not in power, so we can't do anything. Are you not sick and tired of hearing that? Because they are in Congress, they have levers of power they can pull, they have the ability to subpoena, they have the ability to bring public hearings to the table. They don't have to wait for the Speaker of the House to do anything. They have that power right there in their own individual offices. And they're sitting there doing absolutely nothing about what's going on. And now we have the president going after nations all across the world for whatever reason, but to spread chaos. It is a huge distraction away from him and his buddies that are taking all of the money and the assets of the entire nation and putting it in their pockets. This is what it comes down to. And we all know about the Epstein files, and we know that he's in them. And he's everywhere in them. So,
30 seconds.
Right now, we need to be protecting American citizens' lives, our U.S. military servicemen and women. They are being hurt, they've been killed, and there are more being put at peril as our governor sends them across the world to fight in this president's war. So, anti-war, anti-party leadership not doing anything about it.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan?
All of our people in Congress are, the majority, 90% of them are taking money from AIPAC, they're taking money from corporations, they're all taking money from the same group of people, which is why I do agree with the Ban Big Money Amendment. It's eroding our democracy, and that's why what we're seeing is a lot of this entrenched power that has been there for years, has taken money for years. They're not stepping up to do anything when they do have levers of power to do things. Because again, they're all getting paid by the same people and the same lobbyists. And that is a huge issue, but also, yes, we need to redefine the War Powers Act and the myth of the co-equal branches of government. No, Congress has always been the strongest branch of government in the Constitution. We're just not acting like it. Even the minority party has levers of power that they can use. Obstruction, grinding everything to a halt until we get what we need. Subpoenas, hearings, investigations. We need to be doing all of that. We need a new nuclear deal. And we absolutely need to stop funding Israel, and we need to stop electing politicians that are taking money from them.
Thank you, Morgan. Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, like we've all been saying here, these politicians, they're taking AIPAC money. They're invested in this war financially, and that needs to stop. I will not be taking AIPAC money. I don't currently take AIPAC money. And the other thing that they need to do is I want to see them actually using their authority position to get something done. They have constantly sat on their asses, done nothing, while this administration has torn apart our government. They should be out protesting. They should be, when the President of the United States threatens nuclear war, I don't want to see a post on social media about how that's a shame. I want them to be barging down his door to stop him. I want, when Doge came through and stole our social security information, I wanted our congresspeople to be at the doors, linked arm in arm, getting arrested, trying to stop them from accessing our information illegally. That's what I want to see. I want to see the people in power using their power for us and not for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. Teresa.
May 1st. May 1st is a big day because May 1st is a 60-day mark for the Wars Power resolution to be passed, to be heard, to be presented. So until May 1st, that means we have a couple more weeks here. It should be no bars hold to force this resolution and to force a conversation about our intents and purposes with this war of choice in Iran, with the clear answers from this administration about what they're doing with this war in Iran. I don't know about you guys, but I get nervous when I hear the president say that he's going to decide to enter the war, quote unquote, when he feels it in his bones. When he feels it in his bones. Like, that's the way my grandma would tell me if a storm was coming. That's not how we make decisions about international diplomacy and using aggressive force in other countries. It is not. So the question was, how would we do things differently from our existing delegation here,
Correct.
differently or responsive? So one, our current Congressman Amade just now released a statement saying that he thought that President Trump's messaging around the end of the civilization was off. The problem isn't the messaging, the problem is the action. How dare he say it's just the messaging by sidestepping the issue altogether. He has not addressed or given us his stance on this war in Iran. Going forward, what if you elect one of us, what can we do?
30
We're going to be
seconds.
voting on the 2027 fiscal year budget for this government. This president is proposing a tripling of the defense budget, tripling of dollars going to the Pentagon. It tells us right there that he does not intend to let up on these aggressive powers around the globe. In fact, he's going to be tripling down with all of the money that might be passed. So I'm not going to vote for that type of funding and budget, especially when it's at the expense of programs for health and human services, programs for social services, programs that we need
Thank
here
you,
in this
Teresa.
community.
Appreciate that. Okay, our next question is about immigration. What concerns you the most about the way ICE has conducted itself? What do you make of the enormous expansion of ICE prisons in that they are buying up warehouses which are not designed to humanely house large numbers of people at overly inflated prices? What specific procedural safeguards or other legislation would you advocate for if elected to Congress, and why?
My grandfather was a bracero brought to the U.S. during World War II as part of the war effort. American men went off to fight fascism around the world. Women entered the workforce. And so who was going to feed American families? My grandfather was one of millions of Mexican men brought to literally put food on the table for American families. Bracero means arm, with your arm, literally. This country historically has treated its immigrants, all of them, as something that can just be discarded when the perception is that they are not valuable or they're not necessary for our society. These policies are fundamentally racist. And the irony is that they hurt our entire society. So what I would do specifically is we need to abolish ICE, period. We need to form people-powered grassroots movements around economic justice, because this is the old playbook.
20 seconds.
Divide and conquer by the 1% against the 99% of us. If these folks had rights, working rights, political rights, etc., we would all be better off. So we must abolish ICE. Thank you.
Thank you, Nemiel. Greg, you're up next.
So the immigration problem, I think of it as the immigration opportunity. And so we lost sight. We are the melting pot country. So specific change to policy, I believe there should be a guest worker program. There should be, I want to call it amnesty, but I'm going to call it amnesty. Everybody should have a chance to register, get a period of time where they can then apply for a guest worker status, and then we need to have a rational immigration policy. This country needs immigrants. It needs guest workers. ICE was supposed to be dealing with criminal elements that weren't here legally. Obviously, it's totally out of control. I put together a petition to Mark Amadei, who is head of the subcommittee on DHS, which covers ICE funding. You know, when Mark was asked for his comments about what happened in Minneapolis, he said he hadn't seen the video. That's why I offered to do a GoFundMe campaign so you can see what's going on. Okay, that is totally outrageous what's going on with ICE. ICE needs to do its job, and that is a very different job than it's being put to. But immigrants and guest workers are needed. They're integral to the success of this country. And so the Democratic Party has got to get out in front of this opportunity, not this problem, and basically harness
30 seconds.
immigrants and guest workers and put in a program to basically legalize. That doesn't mean amnesty, but to have a process so that everyone is seen. This Gestapo-type period of our country's history will be an embarrassment and a stain, but we can turn this around. We have to treat immigrants and guest workers as an opportunity, not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Josh.
I am furious with what's going on with ICE, and I know that I'm not the only person. I am tired of watching them abuse people, violate people's civil rights, violate their human rights, throw them in this extensive chain of gulag warehouses where we don't even know where they're being treated, how they're being treated. They're not getting the medical treatment that they need. We see them cracking down in the streets in un-American ways. They're threatening to put them out at our polling stations during the election. ICE is no longer an immigration enforcement agency. It is Trump's goon squad, and it can no longer be trusted. So in the answer of the question, what do we do about ICE? We need to close ICE down. We need to close Customs and Border Patrol down. We need to stand up a new agency with professional law enforcement standards that protects people's human rights, protects people's civil rights, and treats them with dignity. We need to be enforcing our immigration laws in a rational and humane fashion, and that is not what's happening right now. And I do not believe that ICE and CBP can be reformed because they've been shot through with all of Trump's people. Everybody needs to be fired. They need to reapply for jobs with a new agency. We had one before 9/11. It was the Immigration and Naturalization Service. We can bring something like that back. There is already precedence for creating a new agency. We need to do that again. And we just need to get in the way of what they're doing. We need to investigate
30
everybody.
seconds.
We need to find out who has been responsible for what. Congressman Amade said that they had done an investigation and there's all kinds of information about how ICE went around about their decision making. If I get into Congress, I want to see that data. I want to know who was responsible for these decisions. And they need to be held responsible when this regime is gone.
Thank you, Josh. Kathy.
Unless you are a member of the First Nations, we are all immigrants. As a history teacher, I understand the history of how immigration has been dealt with in this country, whether you came in from Ellis Island or Angel Island, whether it's the Brazos program or the Chinese Exclusion Act. America has always had a contentious relationship with immigration, and I have found it to be an issue that both parties love to run on but never want to fix, and we need to fix immigration. As it was mentioned, we need guest workers here, we need immigrants. Immigrants built this country and they will continue to do so, I hope. As far as ICE goes, it's a law enforcement agency that is not operating under the law anymore, and that's problematic. It's problematic for the citizens, it's problematic for the people that they are going after. ICE was intended to go after criminal organizations that were in here, child sex trafficking ring, drug trafficking rings. But they're not. They're going after families. They're going after grandparents. They're going after people who have been here for years. And they're doing it in a way that is not constitutional. The Fourth and Fifth Amendment are our rights to be protected from the government. That is why government exists. It is to protect our rights. And what ICE is doing is violating not only the rights of immigrants and people who have come here, but they're violating the rights of American citizens. You mentioned the warehouses that are being bought up for money that is way beyond what they're worth. You know, all you have to do is go back a few years to 1939 and see what happened with the goons that were running around the streets and rounding people up. And once they start with one group, they will come for the next. The masks need to come off, the badges need to come out, the law needs to be followed, and if we cannot do that, then it needs to be disbanded. But I'm a law and order candidate, let's follow the law.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark?
I'm sure all of us are horrified by the actions that we've seen on TV. I'm a dad, and seeing a 5-year-old zip-tied in the street, naked, seeing families disappeared from neighborhoods, seeing my fellow countrymen, citizens, shot in the street, this isn't anything other than a criminal organization in my mind. But let's talk about the future. Billions have been spent on ICE. If we wanted to, we could have made a pathway for citizenship. Look, I love America. I don't want to leave America. And if somebody wants to be an American, heck yeah, come on over. Make this a better place. But right now, they don't really have that pathway. It's not an option. And there are reasons for that. Now, I don't know if all of you guys know this, but I'm an employer. And do you know how hard it is to hire somebody who's a legal citizen and make sure that you're not hiring an illegal person? It's very easy. All you have to do is ask for a driver's license and a social security number, and it's simple. There are choices that are being made by other companies, by bigger industries, that they know what they're doing. They are taking in illegal workers, and that's something that could be stopped, but we choose not to. If we don't want illegals here, we can tell those businesses they're going to be the ones that suffer if they hire illegals. And we don't have to be treating people inhumanely to do it. We can give people who want to be here the opportunity and the pathway to do it. There's the money and the resources to make that happen. That's what I want.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew?
So ICE is a fairly new agency under the Department of Homeland Security. So I don't think that there would be anything that would hurt this nation by dismantling them immediately, defunding them, and putting that money back to where it needs to go, to our health care and to everything else that we've talked about this evening. except for war, right? This is an agency, a federal agency that has been brought to our American citizens' streets. It is war in our own cities, in our communities across this nation, and we may not be being affected by it right here where we live, with our eyes and in our news, but it is happening right underneath our nose. They are anybody who is here, and look, the problem is, like, they're legally here. The majority of these folks, they're deporting American citizens, veterans even, that immigrated here, fought for this nation, and now are being deemed illegal and sent away. These folks need to be protected, and the best way we can do that is because this organization has lost the trust of the American people. They must be dismantled, defunded, and in the meantime, they should be abiding by the law. They should be removing their face masks. There should be cameras, body cams. They should have badges so that they're easily identifiable, not just with ICE on their back, but with their badge number and their name, so we have that information. And they should have law-signed judicial orders to be able to carry out their warrants. This is an abomination to this nation, and my family fought against these folks when they immigrated here to escape them. Back in the 1800s they came here, and they fought them in World War I and World War II and made sure that that wasn't something that was going to continue here in this nation, and my family is appalled.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan?
Yeah, I personally don't like the term illegals. Nobody's illegal on stolen land. You know, we have a lot of people in our government that are trying to make Americans afraid of immigrants and blame all of our problems on immigrants, when really the problem is the massive amount of wealth consolidation, power and influence consolidation that we're seeing, you know, in the 1% with the mega corporations and the billionaires. They're the ones that are causing a lot of the issues that we're seeing. It is not immigrants, and as far as ICE goes, it needs to be abolished. It cannot be reformed. It has been said, they are completely taken over by people that are, you know, Trump's henchmen, and they're being used as a personal secret police force, and they're not being used for their original purpose. So we do need to defund and abolish them, and I would like to see, with immigration, some of that funding used to expand our legal pathways for immigration. And I would really like to see, you know, permanent citizenship for our, you know, DACA and things like that. And I would also really like to see, when we get out of this, investigations into everything that's happened, not just with ICE, but in all of our other branches of government. We need investigations, and we need, you know, answers, and we need people to be held accountable for all the chaos and horrific things that have been done in the last year and a half.
Thank you, Morgan. Samuel?
I believe we should be abolishing ICE. They have committed crimes against humanity, crimes against citizens. They have broken our Fourth Amendment rights, and they are being used as a Trump goon squad to commit acts of terror against the American people. And this is an organization that needs to be abolished, and we can form another organization. As Matthew has said, it's a fairly new organization, relatively, and we can create a more functional immigration agency. The problem here is that Trump is using them to go after protesters. He's using them to go after American voters. He has talked about putting them at polling stations to intimidate people away from the polls. He has signed an executive order to make citizens part of terror organizations if they are anti-capitalist, if they are anti-government. And for this administration, anti-government means asking for social welfare programs, asking for universal health care, criticizing the government, criticizing this administration. And so it is very clear that there's a through line where it is not just going to be used against immigrants, it's going to be used against citizens. It already has been, and that will ramp up. The next point is with the warehouses, the private prisons that we use here. I think it is immoral and just despicable to be using our tax dollars to enrich people for imprisoning other people, to have these billion-dollar companies and corporations who donated to the Trump's campaign get these deals so that they can get these warehouses and get people arrested.
Thanks, Samuel. Teresa?
Thank you. Will you repeat the question one more time?
Of
just
course.
because I want to make sure I
Happy
get
to.
all pieces of it.
It's about immigration, as you probably know.
Yeah.
What concerns you the most about the way ICE has conducted itself? What do you make of the enormous expansion of ICE prisons in that they are buying up warehouses which are not designed to humanely house large numbers of people at overly inflated prices? What specific procedural safeguards or other legislation would you advocate for if elected to Congress, and why?
Thank you. I wanted to make sure I got that last piece. I wanted to make sure I get. So what we've seen happen in this conversation is what we've seen happen from this administration across the board, which is taking our trusted American institutions, weaponizing them, and turning them against our communities and our neighbors, and making us think that our neighbors in our community are the real problem and the real threat when we know that they're not. My father came to this country at the age of 16. He was the eldest of 12. He came over from Mexico looking for economic stability, looking for work. I know that for a large part of my family, when I look at them, I don't see an illegal, I don't see someone that's a criminal. I see people who are working really, really hard and still really believe that this is a land that can provide them with opportunity and a better way to live. But we have to make that true again. So we cannot support organizations that intentionally target our neighbors and American citizens. Everything that's been said about ICE is true. So specifically what we have been asking ICE to do, what's been proposed at the federal level by the Democrats in the Senate and the Democrats in the House, have been nothing more than what we ask our local law enforcement to do, which is you must show your mask, you must identify yourself. Most importantly, if you are involved in an officer-involved shooting, you will be put on leave and there will be an investigation. You're not able to choose whether or not someone's investigated. You will have an investigation. We do this with our local law enforcement. The real threat to our communities, the real threat are the cuts to funding and resources that actually protect us from real crime. Victims of crime programs have been cut. Victims to programs for domestic violence communities, including the shelter here, have been cut. Resources to local sheriff's offices have been cut. That creates a dangerous community.
Thank you, Teresa.
Our immigrant neighbors.
Okay, fourth and final question. Nevada voters have always been fiercely independent, and many are fed up with both parties. How do you plan to energize voters who have lost faith in the Democratic Party? How can you change the public conversation and get people's attention? And finally, will you commit holding town halls, and not just in Reno, but in rural Nevada? Ramayel, you're up.
Yes, town halls, absolutely. Love to be around our community folks. The path to victory, in my mind, for both the primary and the general election, are a set of bold, universal economic policies from cradle to grave for everyone. And at the center, a universal basic income of transferring $1,300 once a month to all, paid for by billionaires that do not pay their fair share. Tesla, Amazon, the mining industry. Why? Because we are dealing with 50 years of economic inequality, not only in the country, but in our state here. We have not talked about the automation and artificial intelligence revolution, which will be displacing many blue-collar and white-collar workers. So in my mind, this universal economic platform is not about left or right. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's not about conservative or liberal. It is about human rights, human dignity, and human freedom for all. It is nonpartisan.
30 seconds.
I know this because I have lived economic inequality. Shortly after 9/11, rather than being able to become a career diplomat, which is what I wanted to do, that was my response to 9/11, I dropped out, became homeless, went through the criminal justice system because in America we criminalize poverty. The data says that this is the path to victory. I embody both the potential and failure of this country.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you.
Greg.
So folks, 2026 is not 2024. It was very lonely back then. There was no Democrat running. It's very hard for a Democrat to win in this district. I ran nonpartisan. I've run under every label. There are Republicans, there are Democrats, think of those as little r's and little d's. We have an opportunity this year to make our district make a difference. There's only one party right now that's operating effectively. The Republican Party has become a rubber stamp for a single person. Maybe it'll become a regular party again someday, but it is not right now. We have a historic opportunity here. This is an open seat. There's a path to victory. It will not occur without winning a plurality of nonpartisan people. You're going to need to peel off some Democrats as well. Every Democrat, peel off some Republicans. Every Democrat's going to need to vote. But it is imperative in this election, at this time in our history, that those labels are not the things that are going to save our democracy. So we need to elect candidates that are going to basically make a difference. There's about 35 districts in this country that are competitive. This could become one of them. Mark Amadei only won by 5 percentage points above the 50-point mark. That was the lowest since Barack Obama did. So this is now a winnable district. That's why there's all this great company. And so I want to just pledge that
30 seconds.
ever elected from this group, I will support them. And I want them to basically do what is best for Nevada. Because we're living in a world where it's not Nevada first, it's America alone and America without. The second district is really going to matter this time. I really want to thank people for coming out. I'm super excited. I'm really psyched with this group of people. It's so much better to not be lonely like it was in 2024. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Josh?
So I plan to be competitive in this district because I am running on fixing the broken system, on getting big money out of politics. And that is something that unites everybody across the political spectrum. Doesn't matter who I talk to them about their issues, and then I ask, how likely do you think it is we will be able to get a solution through our current system? Almost to a person, they don't believe that's possible. People have lost faith in the government. They have lost faith in us as a party because we have not been able to deliver, because the system is broken, because it has been rigged by big money. Until we get serious about fixing this problem, we are going to struggle to get any of the things that we need, which is why I'm so determined to try to launch this movement to get big money out of politics using the Ban Big Money Amendment, which will make sure that we don't have corporations spending money. We don't have PACs spending money. We don't have all of this dark money all over the place. We don't have Elon Musk spending $300 million trying to buy an election. We don't have a California billionaire with questionable loyalties and a massive conflict of interest trying to buy the Democratic primary. I think that this is a message, and I know this is a message that appeals to nonpartisans. It appeals to Republicans because we all suffer because of the broken system. It is what has brought us to this point. It is what has made Donald Trump possible because people have lost faith that the system can deliver, so why not elect the guy who can smash it? We need to get to work fixing the system so that people have faith in it again, to bring it closer to the people. I definitely want to have town halls. I want to have online town halls. I think it's essential for us to maintain contact with the people, not just in Washoe County, but here, out in Elko, out in Ely, everywhere. And we can do that with the electronic tools that we have. I am all about getting this republic working for us the way that it's supposed to.
Thanks, Josh.
I too am going to ask you to repeat the question,
Oh,
because
no,
I got the part about town halls, but I missed the
That's
first part.
they're compound questions, so I don't blame you one bit. Feel free to ask that anytime. Nevada voters have always been fiercely independent, and many are fed up with both parties. How do you plan to energize voters who have lost faith in the Democratic Party? How can you change the public conversation and get people's attention? And finally, will you commit to holding town halls, not just in Reno, but in rural Nevada?
Well, yes, I am going to hold town halls all throughout this district, because that was what got me in this race, is that our representative would not answer my questions when I had them. And as a government teacher, I know that the government is to serve the people and to be held accountable to the people, and that's your number one job. It's not my job to come to you and tell you how I'm going to fix things. It's my job to come to you and listen to how you want things fixed. What are your needs? What do you need? How am I going to win this race as an independent? Or being independent, because Nevada is independent. I'm going to win it by being my authentic self. I am who I am. I have spent 26 years teaching history, government, and economics, building relationships, learning how to solve problems. Not that our children are problems, but they come in as puzzle pieces, each one with a different set of needs, abilities, skill sets, knowledge bases, backgrounds, and my job is by the end of the class period to get them all on the same page, working together and walking out knowing more than they did when they came in. And that is how I'm going to lead, and that's how I'm going to win this race, is by meeting people where they're at, finding common ground, not going far to the left, not going far to the right, but being who I am and rallying around the principles and values that we all hold near and dear to us. Talking about the issues that matter to all of us. Feeding, buying our groceries, filling our tank, getting access to health care, making sure that we are putting America first, Nevada first, in terms of taking care of the needs. One of the things that I have as an advantage, and I really do believe this, no disrespect to anyone, but I don't think we're going to flip this seat unless we get somebody from the rurals to run as a Democrat. People know me in this community, not as Kathy the Democrat, but Coach Durham, who has brought her team in and out of these districts, and I'm a competitor. They know I have high standards. I'm principled. They know that I raise my kids the same way, we compete the same way, and we connect around those common values, not abstract.
Thank you, Kathy. Mark?
So, how to get Democrats excited and engaged. I don't know about you guys, but I filed my paperwork, just a normal guy, and became a candidate. And then 4 days later, Mark Amade dropped out. And so I was ready to pop the champagne right then, but it's not quite enough. I want something. I want more. I want a future where we are all going to have more. And frankly, it's been sliding. It's been sliding toward the wealthy. It's been sliding toward authoritarianism. I'm terrified of what I'm seeing in the road ahead, and I want to change that. So everyone up here has their own pet ideas, and I have mine. First and foremost, I want to make everybody's life easier. I want a massive infrastructure project in this country. I want for us to start spending money on ourselves. The last time we did that was with the national highway system. I want a national rail system, something that's going to touch every single state in the union. That's going to do far more for jobs in this country and for the economics in this country. Not speaking as a businessman here, if I can get things sent by rail a lot faster than tariffs were ever going to do for anyone. I want health care. I want for people not to be afraid to get into an ambulance and what it's going to do to their family's future. I want for housing prices to be reasonable. Right now, my kids are terrified that they're going to have their first home cost $500,000.
30 seconds.
It's crazy. So, what I want is a future, and I'm willing to fight for that. Now, as far as town hall goes, I don't know how the heck you would know what your constituents think unless you're talking to them. And I'm just as frustrated as everybody else. The last guy I had in there didn't seem to ever want to hear from anyone. That is not a cue that I'm going to be taking. I want to hear from all of my constituents as much as possible. Otherwise, how can I possibly represent you? Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Matthew?
So the last time Mark Amade had a town hall, can anybody guess what year? Anybody? 2017. Exactly. And how did we get there? Because we organized. And I was one of those organizers here in Northern Nevada that went all across this district, followed him around, infiltrated his fundraisers, surrounded the building when we couldn't afford to get into the fundraiser, made him come through his constituents to answer to us and say, we want a town hall, not another robocall. And we got him in. We got him and Dean Heller in for a town hall where we got them to commit to vote against the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. And what did? They turned their backs on the Nevadans and they voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. That is the importance of town halls. Not only hearing from the constituents about what the issues are important to them, I think that's where we learn as a representative how best to serve our district and to identify issues that we may not have heard through our constituent services programs in our offices. This is something that I find incredibly important if I were to be elected to office. Yes, especially in the rurals. We must be listening to all voices across this district. This district is very Republican and very nonpartisan, and those numbers are way outnumbering the Democratic Party. The way in which I find to be able to come across those aisles is by having common ground conversations, pushing kindly. Whenever someone says something aggressive to you, don't get easily offended. Listen, because there's a lot of frustration behind it.
20 seconds.
And when we see and we listen through the frustration, we can find the common pathways to have recognition. And I believe folks across this district, I've been having conversations with Republicans out in Elko and nonpartisans all across the district. We are talking to them because they are important votes and voices in this district.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan?
If you want to energize the base, especially in a district like this where a lot of people think it is hopeless and we can't flip it, is you need to offer something new. And I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that I'm very young. I'm 27 years old. There's only one person in Congress who's from my generation, and that is Congressman Maxwell Frost. But as we are seeing across the country right now, there's a lot of momentum for massive generational change. If we want to energize the base, we can't keep electing the same people and doing the same things over and over and over again. That's not going to win the district. That is not going to energize the nonpartisans. That is not going to interest and energize the Democratic base either. And I can confidently say that I am one of the only candidates in this race that has lived in rural and urban Nevada. My family's been in the state since the 1800s. I was born and raised right here in northern Nevada. This district is the district that raised me. I know it very, very well. I was raised by a conservative ranching family in rural Nevada. I very much know how those conversations go and how to talk to people like that. And I can walk into any room in this district from Reno to West Wendover, rural, urban, nonpartisan, Democrat, Republican, and I can talk to all of those people. And we really also need to get back to the things that matter, the cost of living, the massive amounts of corruption and erosion that we're seeing in Congress. We really need to talk about those. We really need to get a handle on that, and even the weakness that we're seeing in both parties. So, and I'm also very confident that we can flip the district this year, and I know that I can flip the district this year in the general election. And Jill Derby, who ran in 2006, believes the same thing. I spoke with her recently, and I'm very honored to say that she's throwing her support behind me in my campaign. Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. Samuel?
I guess first thing I'll say is I would definitely plan to hold town halls. It has been extremely frustrating not being able to talk to your representative, and I would definitely not emulate that at all. I want to hear from the people who vote for me. I want to hear from the people of this state. And I think a huge aspect of my campaign is I am running on affordability. And that is not a left issue, it's not a right issue, it is a human issue. We are all being squeezed by the wealthy. We are all being priced out of our homes. I am watching my state, my home, my family be priced out and have everything here just become so unaffordable. I am scared of my parents getting cancer and us losing any wealth that our family has managed to accumulate, which isn't much in the big scheme of things. And it's scary. And I think most people see that, most people feel that. I think that's why you have, I think that's why we saw the Trump campaign sweep the way it did, is that he was offering something different. It wasn't good, but it was different. What we need is a candidate who's not status quo. We need to have a candidate that we can trust, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of good ways to see that, but I think one of the best ways is to be checking who's donating to them, that they're not accepting AIPAC money, they're not accepting corporate money, that they're going to be fighting for us and for the people of this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Teresa.
People are ready for a change, and you can feel it, right? Like, I think from the soil to our sapphire sky, throughout Congressional District 2, we are ready for a change. And so the only thing that I can offer to you, and what I can tell you, is that I love change, and I'm gonna have fun making change. That sometimes we get so down about what we can't do, and there's a lot of anxiety out there. People have a lot of cause and a lot of anxiety and worries, and it's all justified right now. We could go down a list of things we're worried about, and we could get so caught up in that we could feel like we don't have an opportunity to make a difference. But we always have an opportunity to make a difference. So when I was in the state legislature and we said we need to increase the minimum wage, and people said that's never going to happen in Nevada, I voted for it twice, sent it to the ballot for the people to vote on, and we got the minimum wage increased in the state of Nevada. When we said we need paid family leave, we need to make this happen, and people said there's no way that the business and industry in this Nevada is going to let you guys pass paid family leave. We passed it, we wrote the legislation, we advocated, we passed it, and now people have paid family leave in Nevada. When people said there's no way you can go ahead and create more access to health care in Nevada, there's no way you can stand up a public option, there's no way you can increase programs and benefits for people, kind of said, why not try? I mean, what's the worst position you come in if you just try? So we drafted that legislation and we passed it. We can't live in a space where we really believe that we think that change is impossible. It can happen, but it's going to start first and foremost with someone who believes that it can happen and puts their name on the ballot. I believe that we can come with a better America. I believe that we can deliver on the promises of what is good and great about America. I believe we can get back to normal. I believe we can be proud of our presidency and our administration. I believe we can change the communities around us. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Teresa. Okay, that concludes our questions. Now the candidates each get, since they get to introduce themselves, they get 2 minutes to offer you a closing statement, tell them a little about themselves. So this is a free-for-all, and that's my dog Joy. I think she needs some love. So.
Is that a tissue coming out? Oh, it's a poop bag.
So with that, I'll turn over to Kathy.
Folks, the data says I'm not supposed to be here. I could either be dead or in prison. As I mentioned, my grandfather was a bracero. My mom also worked the fields. I was born in that environment, and back when social mobility was a thing, I was the first to graduate from high school, to attend college, dropped out as a result of economic inequality. My desire was to be a public servant, a career diplomat, advocate for American ideals around the world. But as a result of that economic equality, I dropped out, became homeless, went through the system, had to survive on SNAP, minimum wage, bounced back up like Rocky, like many of us, got my degrees. I have a master's in public administration from the University of Nevada, Reno. And what truly sets me apart and what is the path to victory is this authentic story. We have way too many lawyers in Congress. I have that PhD in the School of Hard Knocks, number one. I have the right combination of academic excellence to be able to lead on day one, particularly when it comes to international relations and how that affects the high cost and affordability for every one of us here in Nevada. The progressive economic platform, universal economic policies from cradle to grave with that $1,300 transfer just like we had during the pandemic, that will unite everyone across the political spectrum. We have seen that with Alaska. They have their Alaska Permanent Fund. Number 4, I am bilingual. I have been doing voter outreach to our brothers and sisters that are Hispanic and Latino. Number 5,
Thanks so much. Great, you're up.
I just wanted to finish first on town halls. I started holding them as soon as this administration came in because there was a big demand. Town halls are terrific. I will continue to hold them. I will continue to go to them. I think they're a foundational part of American democracy. I was not born here in Nevada, so at the debate with Mark Amodei, I asked the League of Women's Voters. Most of them weren't born there either. I commiserated with them. I said, poor Mark, he didn't have any choice, but we all chose to come here. And so I feel really lucky. I've lived a lot of places in the world. I chose Nevada. It has a lot to do with my background roots growing up. I worked in the National Outdoor Leadership School in Outward Bound as an outdoor educator. This is the most beautiful place on the earth. I can live anywhere. I choose Nevada. Nevada has exceptionalism, has an amazing history. I want Nevada to be resilient and to recognize and realize every opportunity going forward. So I'm really humbly grateful for the opportunity to do this. It was pretty rough back in 2024. I'm super psyched that everybody's so excited about 2026. Come a long way from the bike messenger industry that I started from. I'm a builder. Nevada is a place, to me it's like the West Coast version of New Hampshire, which was live free or die. This is the
30
wildest,
seconds.
most exceptional state. I'm going to admit, I'm going to do it in a bipartisan manner. I'm someone who will work with Democrats, I will work with nonpartisans, I'll even work with Republicans. It's Nevada first. I will do everything I can to turn around in Washington, D.C., the shift toward America alone and America without. My view is a seat at the table for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh Hebert. I am a native Nevadan. I was born in Reno to Nevada parents, but I have barely lived here. So it's crazy that I'm doing this, which is nothing new for me because I am bipolar. Don't be frightened. I've spent most of my life figuring out how to be this way, and I understand it. And we need it. I have lived outside the box my entire life, and I've done a lot. I have a PhD in physics. I got that at age 45. I've worked training AI. I have driven real change through large organizations more than once. I've been married for 28 years. I've raised 2 kids. This is my first run for elected office, but I have been involved in politics for a long time. I just swore that I wouldn't run until my kids were grown. And I did not plan to run just this year. I had been planning this campaign for 4 years because I saw then that the Republic was failing and that our leaders were failing to meet the moment. My plan to get big money out of Congress, out of politics, grew from that. This campaign is just the first move. And it's not about me. I'm just the crazy guy trying to put this out there. There are plenty of people on this stage who are better positioned to get this forward than me. I just want to see somebody take the lead on this. And big money is only getting bigger. It just keeps rigging the system harder. If we don't get serious about this battle, big money is going to take over. Tell me it's not already happening.
30 seconds.
I challenge everybody on this stage to embrace the Ban Big Money Amendment. We need to get this movement started, so either get behind it or have a damn good reason for why not.
Thanks, Josh. Kathy.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and to this job interview and interviewing us for this job, because that is exactly what it is. And I'm really, really, really thankful as someone who got in this race over a year ago and started traveling around and putting the feelers out there that you all have choice in this election. That is what democracy looks like. I never in a million years thought I would be standing in front of a group of people applying to be their representative. If you've seen my video, it starts with, I've lived a lot of lives, I've had a lot of jobs, and that is true. And I never thought that this would be a job that I would apply for or a life that I would live. But I realize now, in all of the jobs that I've ever had and all of the lives that I've ever lived, it prepared me for exactly this moment. Being somebody who learned about patriotism from living in a family of veterans. moving around and always being the outsider because we were constantly on the move taught me to be flexible and learn how to adapt, learn how to fit in, learn how to value relationships, learn how to build relationships, and hold on to those relationships when you have to move on. I've lived a rancher's life. I lived on a farm. I understand water rights. I understand hard work. I watched a mining town transition to a tourist town. I understand that we need to put people over profits and community over corporations. And that is what the many lives that I have taught,
30 seconds.
have lived, have taught me. Being a teacher, teaching history, government, and economics, further teaching those relationships and gave me the background to understand the system that we have to operate in and learn how to be able to solve the problems that we need to solve. And we have a lot of them, but we also have a lot of good people in this country that are rallying behind and saying we're ready for something different, we're ready for a change, and I'm ready to help bring about that change. Thank you for coming.
Thanks so much, Kathy. Mark?
What's your dog's name?
Joy.
Well, I want to pet that dog. I don't know how many of you guys know me. I'm a former archaeologist. I came here to do archaeology. I've been in every part of this state, walked most of it. I love it. In fact, I named my first child after this state. But the archaeology doesn't come to you, you've got to go to it. And so as appealing as that might sound, spending time in Winnemucca and Elko and Battle Mountain and all the other places, I want to settle down and have family. So I started up a business, and it's been going pretty good. But the challenges of it have gotten harder. I am seeing big money get treated with the red carpet, and I'm seeing all the rest of us paying the bills. I'm seeing a future shrink away from my children and away from all of us. And somebody's got to stop it. And I guess I had the audacity to say, okay, well, if nobody else is going to do it, I guess I'll do it. And I filed my paperwork. Now, I come from experience in building things, working with my hands, getting out there into the environment, and having an appreciation for it. I have worked with agencies. I've written voluminous reports. I have worked with developers, mining organizations, and in my business, I've had to put customer service first. I would take the Pepsi challenge with anybody in here as to their reviews.
30 seconds.
Now, what I bring to this, I guess practical, real world experience. I've had to put together a team, which is what any of us are going to have to do when they actually get the job. We're all going to have staff. We're all going to have to manage timetables, expectations, and community outreach. And this is something that I am steeped in. So I'm hoping to be able to garner that reputation and make you guys proud of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Matthew?
Hello, everyone. Matthew Fonkin, and thank you so much to the Rural Democratic Caucus for setting this up. I know it's a lot of work to get all of us here, and thank you all for coming this afternoon to hear from us all. These are very difficult questions to answer because we're in very difficult times. Background on me, I grew up on a rural horse farm. My mom and dad started that farm while I was in the womb. And my mom said, I've been riding horses since before I was born. And whenever she's been working since I was 2 years old, handing the fence clip to dad while he built the fence. I started in growing and building things from the start, from the ground up. I went to college, I started my own Boy Scout troop. My brother and I started it from the ground up. Went to college, first in my family to go to college. Worked my way through college. Went to the restaurant industry, built my way up. Went to Nevada in 2016 and started in politics for the first time in my life and built from the ground up. You hear a resonating message here. I am someone who is not scared of work, never gives up a fight, and will continue to do the fight and the work all the way through. I've stayed in politics in this state and continued working to fight for Nevadans, even when party leadership didn't want me to. They wanted me to go away because I stood up and I fought for what was right. And we won. We beat MAGA Republicans, and we will continue to do so in this district.
30 seconds.
Because we need a fighter in Congress and someone who's not beholden to billionaires and corporations and party leadership at the end of the day. I'm Matthew Fonken. You can go to my website, fonkenfornevada.com, and feel free to grab a bumper sticker at the end of this. Fonken for Fonken.
Thank you, Matthew. Morgan.
That was good. Thank you all for coming out here. Again, my name is Morgan Wadsworth, and I was born and raised here in Northern Nevada. Family, again, has been here for a very, very long time as ranchers and union tradesmen. Have a lot of construction workers and electricians in my family. And my story is I actually wanted to be a doctor my entire life. And the reason for that, and I don't want to get too deep into it because it always makes me tear up. My grandfather, who lived in rural Nevada, a little bit more south though, he was shot in the head when he was 15 with a buckshot BB gun, and that really changed the trajectory of his life after that. They didn't think he would live. If he lived, he wouldn't wake up from his coma. He woke up after 2 months, and he passed away actually not too long after I started my campaign, which is why I don't want to get too deep into talking about him. But I grew up watching him needing to go to California because we did not have the neurologists and the neurosurgeons in rural Nevada. And that really shaped how I saw healthcare in Nevada. And so I always wanted to be a doctor, I always wanted to be a neurosurgeon, and I got older, and let me just say, working in the hospitals in Nevada really showed me how broken they were, and I realized I can't fix this as just a singular doctor. This is a systemic issue that is going to need a lot more than a medical degree. So here I am, running for Congress, and I believe, again, we need to look to the future, not the past. We need new ideas, new faces, new energy, and we need somebody who understands the district to go to the general and to go to Congress so that they can do right by Northern Nevada. Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. Samuel.
I am fed up. I am completely fed up, and that's why I'm running. I have been stuck voting for the lesser of two bad options my entire life. And I am here currently running as a Democrat because we have a two-party system. And I don't believe everything the Democrats believe in, but I am going to be part of that system. I want to change that system. I would love to have a ranked choice voting system. I would love to see multiple parties here. And I am fed up of seeing friends cry because they're stuck in a situation where they have to pay their rent and can't save, and have to pay bills and can't save, and they are stuck in this cycle. And I am fed up of seeing good people thrown to the streets because they got sick. I'm sick of seeing people thrown to the streets because their rent went up just because someone wanted to make an extra buck, because some venture capitalists wanted a better year. I am sick of going to the center of Reno, where I've been living the last 15 years, and seeing homeless people across the streets with no options. I grew up in Carson City. I've been a working Nevadan my entire life. I'm currently a bus driver. I did some jobs doing fencing abandoned mines out here in the middle of Nevada. I actually was a wildlife firefighter stationed here in Winnemucca. Well, not here. I was actually in Paradise Valley, which is like 30 minutes north of here. But my whole life, I've been trying to figure out ways to help my community, and I think this is the best option so far. And I want to see real change that will really impact and really affect the lives of people who are being harmed by the systems we live in. My name is Samuel White, and I'm running for Congress.
Thank you, Samuel. Teresa.
I'm Teresa Benitez Thompson. Nice to meet you all. A little bit about me by background. I'm a licensed social worker. I've been a social worker in this state for just over 20 years now. My husband and I are raising our 4 children in Reno. I spent a long time in the state, although I wasn't born here. I've been in the state for 43 years. I did try leaving once, though. I went and did my graduate program at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. I was back there and quickly realized that the sun goes away for about 4 to 5 months and doesn't come back out. I realized that I'm solar powered. I have to be where the sun shines every day. So I came back to Nevada. This is my home. This is just being in the state energizes me. I believe it's the most beautiful place on earth, and I think we're incredibly blessed to live in this beautiful land. So why do I believe that we can change this district? Why do I believe that, I'm sorry, we're not answering that question, we're just doing introductions now.
Yes.
But going back to why I believe, I've got a lot on the line, but we all have a lot on the line. So whether you are a senior who's really worried about what's gonna happen with your Social Security or your Medicare benefits, whether you're like me and you have people in your family who are working moms getting nervous about that grocery bill, whether you are in agriculture and you're looking at the price of your diesel and you're wondering, how am I going to afford this? Things aren't penciling out and people are nervous. Those are the conversations I want to have with people across CD2. And that's why I'm running. That's why I've thrown my name in the hat, because I solidly believe that there are things that we can afford and things that we can't afford. And we can't afford any more of this administration's cuts and harms throughout Congressional District 2. But we can afford new types of leadership, new types of conversation, someone who's going to be willing to engage with all of you folks. I've spent a lot of time all through CD2. Look forward to seeing you all again soon. I'm Teresa Benitez Thompson. You can find out more about me at electteresa.com. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Teresa. So, you can mute the mic. I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank everyone for coming. It really means a lot that you came out to see us in the middle of the day on a Wednesday. I apologize, Winnemucca. I would have preferred to do this at a better hour for you all. But your library is fantastic and really busy. They're having their board meeting in this room at 4 o'clock, so we had to get out before then, and we've got some time to hang out or do whatever you need to do as we pack up. And then you all have your science fair the next 2 days. So I think meeting in community places like this is important. Grassroots democracy is important, and I'm really thrilled that we had all our candidates and all of you to come out. So thanks a bunch, and you all enjoy the rest of this day, and I hope it doesn't snow tomorrow as much as I love the snow.
The meteorologist said he wasn't sure it was going to snow.